We can't gather in person this year, but we've adapted. The 2020 Milwaukee Film Festival brings the best in film from across the globe and around the corner. And this year, it's all virtual, so the films and events are coming directly to you. Join us for the 2020 Milwaukee Film Festival, October 15th through the 29th. More information is at mkefilm.org/MFF.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Day 9 of the 2020 Milwaukee Film Festival presented by Associated Bank. I'm Kara, and I am the Artistic Director at Milwaukee Film, and this is the Nightcap, presented by the Yabuki Family Foundation. Couple of reminders before we get into the Q&A portion of this evening. I want to remind you to cast your vote for the Alan H. Budd and Suzanne L. Seelig Audience Awards. To vote this year, you're going to go to the film or the shorts program that for whatever you saw at watch.mkefilm.org. So go back in with your ticket code or your pass. It's not available on your TV app, so you have to go to the web browser. You'll find a button on the film page that says vote here. And you're just going to click there and you'll be presented with a form to cast your ballot. Same scale as always, where 5 is excellent and 1 is not so excellent, but a reminder that although in person we ask you to tear out the number, please don't tear the number when you are faced with your computer screen, or you will have a very hard time sending the next email that you need to send. As you've seen, we have a double up challenge happening thanks to the generosity of Richard Galloon and Judith McGregor. If we are able to raise $75,000 during this year's festival, they will match that with a donation of $75,000 of their own. If you would like to help us with that, you can do it in a number of ways. You can text double up to 44321, as you see at the bottom of your screen there. You can go to our website, mkefilm.org/donate. Or if your membership is up for renewal this month, that'll count. If you're not yet a Milwaukee Film member and you're thinking about it, this would be a good month to do it because now through the 29th, all of those kinds of ways of giving to us are doubled. That includes your roundups. If you're buying some tickets on our website for this film festival that we're watching right now, you have an opportunity to round up at checkout, and you can give just, a few cents, gets doubled. Dollars, doubled. Please do consider helping us meet this goal. As of this morning, it's day 9, so we're just over the hump of the halfway point. We're 73% of the way there, which sounds really good, but we've slowed down kind of a lot in the last couple of days, which is starting to make people worried. So help us not be worried. Let's get through this weekend and be done. And then maybe I'll stop having to tell you about the double up every time I introduce a Q&A. Milwaukee Film, of course, couldn't do what we do without our members. I see members' eyeballs out there on the internet watching us now. I want to tell you thank you. You help us maintain our mission, even virtually throughout the year, helping send students films of festival quality and great curriculum, helping bring filmmakers into their classrooms, even when their classrooms are in their kitchens and their dining rooms. We are able to do that with the year-round support of our members. And I want to take this moment to thank you and to have you maybe spread the word. Help us double up a new member today or tomorrow or sometime before Thursday. I really appreciate your support. This evening, we will be joined by the director and producer and co-producer and cinematographer of Finding YINGYING, as well as the director of DIABLA, which is a short in our Shorter is Better Midnight Shorts program, the title of which I am not allowed to say on the internet because the FCC will get me in trouble. But you know what it's called. It's our Midnight Shorts program. If you are joining us out on the internet, throw your comments and your questions into the chat, and we will bring them into the dialogue as we go. And first, I'd like to welcome to the screen our Finding YINGYING filmmaking team. Hey, folks. Hello. Can I have each of you quickly sort of introduce yourself and your role on the film? Although some of you sort of say it on your name tag.
Yeah, I'm Jenny Shi, and I'm the director of Finding YINGYING. Right now, I'm in Chicago.
So I'm Brent Huffman. I'm a producer, like it says.
Hi, I'm Shilin. I'm the co-producer and the other director of photography, and now I'm in Los Angeles.
You can tell you're a DP because you're probably the best lit of everybody on screen.
Thank you.
I need one of them here in my home to help me with this. So Jenny, my first question is for you, which is just sort of, you tell us some of this in the film, but I'm interested in hearing again, or hearing sort of for the first time for some folks, where this film started for you, kind of like, and where did it maybe become a film? Like, when did you know, like, oh, this is like, this is a real thing now?
Yeah, so YINGYING went missing in the summer of 2017, and at that time I was still a student at Northwestern University, and I was actually in Brent's class. I was studying documentary journalism. So when YINGYING first went missing, I learned about the disappearance through a WeChat message from the college alumni group chat from my home university in China. So everyone at that time was just trying to, find her. So I also posted her information on my social media. And I think a week after her disappearance, I heard that Ying's family actually flew from China to search for her. And they lived in Urbana-Champaign area. So I also went down to visit them. And that's where I met Shilin, who was a volunteer and also a senior student at U of I. So that's how we met each other. And at first, I didn't really think about making a film. I just saw so many people helping the family. Some people delivered food, some people help with translation. And I just thought, I had a camera and I know how to tell a story. And maybe I can just start, document what's going on. And we didn't really know what's going to happen next, because everyone was just thinking maybe Ying would be found very soon. Maybe like 2 days later, she came back like safely. But I think it's like 3 weeks after her disappearance, the FBI and the police, they arrested suspect, and they didn't believe Ying was still alive. So from that point, everyone just realized that, the story went to a totally different direction, and we didn't really know, what exactly happened to her. But Shilin and we just decided to keep following the story. And meanwhile, we were still visiting the family as volunteers, because at first, you can't really, tell the family, like, we are going to make a feature film on your journey, things like that. We were really still, I think that was still a process of building the trust. And also, basically, the family need people's help, and they just need people to stay with them, spending time with them, since they knew nothing about America. They knew nothing about English. So that's how we started.
Yeah. So, Shilin, you've been brought into this as sort of like how and when you got involved. What was your kind of like, what was your like emotional sort of energy around sort of saying, yes, we need to keep following this story. We need to keep telling this story. Sort of, where were you at emotionally or mentally at that point?
It's muted. So at one hand, we were, with the family as, both a volunteer and family friend. And we were recording everything because we thought, we did a lot of search with the family, as you can see in the film, in the wild and in some like state parks. And there are a lot of places that they've been in the States. So we don't know, they could miss some hint, when they were searching. So we do want to keep everything in the camera. And while the other hand is that there are a lot of very emotional moments that we've been with the family, because we cook with them and sometimes we live with them. And so there are a lot of intimate moments that Jenny was really taking a lot of hit, because she's very close and connected with the family emotionally, because, a similar age with YINGYING, and they talk a lot. And while I'm also a Chinese student, I think I kind of more like playing a role as the brother, the younger brother who spoke less. But I was observing everything, and it was hard. It was hard for me as a cinematographer, even though behind the camera, I have to be professional and tape everything, but I'm constantly being affected by what's going on in front of the camera. So it was quite a challenge and a practice for me to, learn how to navigate through a very strong and emotional scene while doing my job and, keep the frame rolling. Yeah.
Yeah. And Brent, when did you get involved and sort of come on as a producer?
So like Jenny mentioned, I'm a professor at Northwestern University. I'm also a documentary filmmaker. Jenny was my graduate student. So this started as a student, a student project. And Jenny was just getting this incredible access. Both Jenny and Shilin had really built this great trust with the family, and we're getting this amazing material. They did make a student film, but I think we all thought there was so much more to this story, so much more of the story to tell. That the trial hadn't happened yet. So I came on to just kind of help amplify the voices and help craft this story.
Yeah. And to apologize for the way that, the academic year makes it so you have to find an end to a story sometimes. And the world of documentary filmmaking doesn't always allow for that. So yeah, so it's wonderful that you were able to kind of like follow beyond the kind of that sort of frame of a year or a semester. We've already gotten to a question that I wanted to sort of ask later. So I want to ask it kind of in a different way about like gaining that trust, earning the right to help tell the story of Yingying. And you've talked a little about like being there as part of this community that's supporting them in this moment of searching, and then in this moment of sort of the traumas and the sort of revelations that follow, and in this sort of seeking justice and combating this sort of strange system and the strange culture that they're in. Can you talk a little bit about sort of, we see that boundary being drawn sometimes where, this is not something to be filmed, or this is like, we're not going to follow here. Can you talk a little bit more about the choices that you were making, and when you were choosing maybe to turn off the camera and be humans together versus filmmaker plus family? And those choices that you were making daily, I assume?
Yeah, I would say we didn't really have a specific guideline that applied to all the situations. We really made decisions just based on how was that day. For example, when we were in the US in 2017, the family at the time, their priority was trying to find her. And even when they were at home, they were either very like quiet, or the mom, sometimes she would like talk to herself saying that, where's my daughter, things like that. And for us, we just don't really want to, basically get involved too much and make them, put extra burden on them. So sometimes we would just ask them whether we could film like 5 or 10 minutes of the quiet moment, just everyone sitting there. And they said yes. So we would just film things like that. So I would say in 2017, every time before we turn on the camera, we would ask whether it was okay. And there were like several moments you see in the film, actually, like the press conference and like in the car, sometimes like the mom, she just started crying, or you really see like the situation started going to like out of control. We struggled a lot, whether we should like keep the camera on or just stop rolling. I mean, it's so for all the like footage we have like in the film right now, we made a decision to keep filming, right? But there were other like situations we just stopped filming. So that's really case by case. But in China, because the family, they felt more comfortable in China actually, and they didn't really need to put up like a face, very calm, because in the US, they didn't want to cause any trouble. But in China, it was at home, right? So there were a lot of like intimate moments, and they basically really, trusted Shilin and me, and they really treated us as their own children. But there were also other like very intimate conversations between Ying's father and me. Like he specifically told me that like, Jenny, like just stop filming. I just wanted to chat with you. So I would like stop filming and we would have conversation. And I do think like the parents, they need to, talk to someone because of like the family conflicts, in between. Sometimes they just can't really talk to each other. But like when I was there, the mom wanted to talk to me like individually, and the father wanted to talk to me individually. So for them, actually, that was good. So that's how we made the decision. And in the trial, we actually lost access during the guilt phase. That was, I mean, I think basically for like safety concern, and they didn't want to jeopardize the trial. And we totally respect their choice. So we didn't film, actually. We didn't film with them directly during the guilt phase, but we tried to capture everything outside the courthouse, like they walk into the courthouse, things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm moving back because I intended to get to that question a little later, but we got there so naturally. I wanted to sort of dig in a little bit more there. Jenny, you talk a little bit about this in the film because you talk in the film. You are a voice. You are present as our guide, kind of as the story unfolds and as you kind of reconstruct pieces of this. Was that always the plan? Is that something you were reluctant about? It's not something that documentary film school has historically been like, yes, the filmmaker should be present as a voice. They should be neutral. Can you talk a little about that choice to be our narrator, to be our guide, to be the interlocutor between these cultures and these spaces?
Yeah, I wasn't in the film at all at the very beginning, and that wasn't my plan. I was really reluctant to be in the film. But I think the reasons, there are different reasons. First, when I first showed the 30-minute student cut at a work in progress screening in Chicago, that was basically like a raw moment with the family, like grieving. And there were some questions about who's making this film, and whether you are exploiting the family, and why we need to see, such a sad story. What's the point of the film? That was the first time, I started to think about whether I should explain why I'm making this film somehow. And then later, when we, kept following the story, there were more issues, coming out from the story beyond this case. It was about Chinese international students. And we feel like that's something really important we need to mention, or at least touched on in the film. So I just feel like putting myself in the film is a great way to weave it into the film organically. Especially Ying and we had similar experience, like getting into someone's car, and we felt so lonely and homesick during the first few months in the US. So there's a very clear parallel between Ying and me, and I think that's another reason. And also, like the voiceover of Ying's diary. At first, I was just as a temp voiceover, and we were looking for like an actress to read the diary. But I think the main reason was that we just don't want the audience to get confused. Who's reading Ying's diary as Ying, and who's Jenny as I'm reading my voiceover. But later on, we had multiple work in progress screenings. Audience feel like, if it was me like reading the diary, they felt even more connect to Ying, her personality. And that's why I also actually became the actual voiceover of Ying's diary. And also, other than that, there were so much details that no one else can really get to know. It's only me, because there were a lot of intimate moments, and I think these are details the audience should know about the case, and how much the family they've been going through in the past 3 years. So that's the decision. Yeah.
Brent, as a teacher of documentary film, this happens. But there's always a reluctance, I think, because it's, there's supposed to be this critical distance. Like how do you, respond to that choice? Is it something that you endorsed initially? Something that you would encourage filmmakers to consider more frequently?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, so initially it was kind of a strictly cinema verite film where Jenny was really this kind of fly on the wall. I still think there's something great about that version, but there were these big legitimate questions like, what right do we have to, to be this close to the family as they're hurting and they're suffering. And, as I think Jenny said very well, the adding her voice and making it feel like it's coming from this more personal place. And it's coming from almost, I mean, Jenny's not a family member, but she almost was like a family member or this close friend that really cared about the subjects. I think that was maybe what was most important to me in the end, that the film felt like, it is this humanizing, beautiful portrait of Yingying and her incredible family. And then it was being told by people that really cared about her and really knew the story and really close to it. Journalists who are trying to tell some salacious story or something.
Yeah. And I mean, the film sort of toes this line. It teases with like a true crime genre, and there's moments of that, but it becomes something much more complicated and beautiful and intimate, I think, through this voiceover decision, but also through other choices that are made to sort of turn the title on its head, right? At the beginning, we are trying to find, like, literally, but the film becomes an act of finding, of trying to reconstruct or re-find or remake, reimagine, kind of imagine into being someone who, I would never have had the opportunity to know without the film. So I am happy that you made this decision. I'm usually happy when filmmakers decide to do this, but it's probably because they think really, really hard about whether they are going to do this sort of breaking of the wall voice or presence thing. I find it a useful frame, but as a viewer, it's nice to know why are you making this? What right do you feel you have, and where is your place? So, another like. So when you set out, first you didn't know you were making a film at all, and then you're sort of like, well, we need to sort of capture this. This is important to sort of honor and capture. A striking thing for me is sort of the film makes visible these differences between the kind of justice that the family expects and the failure of the U.S. justice system to deliver on that. Can you talk a little bit about your goals in kind of putting kind of Chinese culture and Chinese cultural expectations and cultural system shock on screen in those moments?
Yeah, I think for me, I never intended to blame, who, and also never wanted to compare, two legal system, justice system, and to say which is better, which is worse, things like that. My goal is always to show a full picture of what the experience in China looks like and what the experience in the US looks like, and really to show, because of the cultural differences and the differences between the two criminal justice system, which made the family's life and their journey to look for Ying so hard. So the ultimate goal is to try to have the audience be with the family and to really experience what they've gone through in the 2 years long journey to look for their daughter and trying to actually seek justice for their daughter. Mm-hmm. And these are, the elements we can't really, avoid, tell the story without them. We can't really do that. So I think they just come like organically into the film. And also, I think some people would talk about like death penalty, things like that. And I myself, I also made comments, in the film actually. But that's just my experience. And I think that's almost like the family, what they thought, at that time. So yes, that's why we put these elements in the film.
Yeah. It adds to sort of, it adds to kind of the trauma, right? That there's not only is their daughter missing, but also they're working within a system that is foreign, literally, but that also is just like not, there's that learning that's needing to happen. And there's lots of differences, like language, cultural, but then even sort of the piece of culture that is the justice system, which I think we often imagine isn't, or we imagine is universal. But no, in fact, it's much more complicated than that. So I think that's it. It reveals a lot. You started the film in 2017, and sort of the trial doesn't conclude until the summer of 2019. What are sort of moments over that scope of time that were revelatory, eye-opening, and these might be things like within, the what's happening on screen, but also maybe, pivotal moments in the filmmaking, in terms of the process. I want to hear that from each of you to whatever degree.
Okay. Yeah, I think, I don't know. I think, like for me, like just in production, the trip I made to China really made a difference, because I never thought because I think in the US, the family, they didn't really express their emotions. And I didn't really know like what actually they thought about, in terms of the criminal justice system.
Right.
And also the mom, I feel like I never saw any like smiles on her face actually in the US. But in China, there were moments that, the mom, she would talk to me very happily, and she would mention Yingying very happily, and just talk about like the moments they spent before. And the father, he really, you actually saw that in the film, like they have a lot of conversation about the criminal justice system. And there was like conversation with Ying's grandparents saying that, American students, whatever. So for me, that was the first time I really got like what they really wanted, like what was deep in their heart. But they never talked to other media or talked to anyone else. So that was really, I think, critical moments in terms of production. Yeah.
For me, there were two big ones. I think one was when the mother, comes to the U.S. for the first time. So she actually initially wasn't a main character, in the first round of filming. Ying's aunt was a kind of primary character, and I have a little girl, I have a daughter, and the mom, I would act exactly how the mom acts in the movie. Just she kind of falls apart, and she's kind of this open wound of suffering. And to me, I think that was, not that I want to see people suffer, but it was such a relatable. It was so relatable to see her reaction, and I honestly would have felt the exact same way. Like when she comes to the U.S. and the first thing that she wants is to see Yingying. Like there's this kind of misunderstanding about where things are at, and then she wants to meet the killer's parents and ask why did he do this, and those were all just enormously powerful moments. And then I think the early in the trial when Brent Christensen's lawyers admit to admit that that Brent Christensen killed her. I thought that was a huge shock for everyone, and I think really kind of changed the way we were thinking about the trial.
For me, the biggest moment I had was in the process of post-production, when I was helping translate a lot of the Chinese material. And following the family for a long time, it's always knowing Yingying from her friends and her family's words. But actually, when I was translating her diary and actually reading her own words for the first time, it was the moment that you were around her life and the people around her for a long time, and then when you actually get to read what she wrote, it hits you instantly. And I think it shows so much more about who she was, and how hardworking and optimism and all the schedules that she was keeping, and it just instantly made me know who I want to meet with her, and I want to know this person and be a friend with her. So I think this is the most emotional moment for me during the process.
Yeah. You've pointed to these that the film, at the same time that it is showing this sort of difference, there's also, I think, so many moments that are empathetically relatable. You know, I mean, I thought back to being in college and being, you know, not you know, being homesick, even though I wasn't that far away from my parents, but like sort of like these moments of difference that there's these true relatable moments, but also, you know, of being maybe vulnerable and not knowing that I was vulnerable to, you know, things that could happen, and being, you know, confident. And there's so many of those moments, while also these sort of like thinking about these differences between the cultures that sort of, I think, pulls audiences both in and out, sort of in a really compelling kind of a way. You have recently received very good news about the film. The film has been picked up for distribution by MTV Documentary Films. Congratulations. And you've released the film in a strange time, having sort of fully lived in this Q&A environment. Can you talk a little bit about the reception of the film, and, you know, sort of whether sort of putting the film in front of audiences has helped kind of serve as a moment of completion, of revelation for, you know, sort of being able to share Yingying's story and life and self, you know, through the words of her diary, feeling that as a viewer, I was like, oh, I like to hang out, right? Is sharing the film with others giving you that feedback and that response?
Yeah, definitely. For us, like the film was set to premiere at South by. It was canceled, and then like we didn't really have any festival in spring, because I think at first a lot of festival they just canceled and try to figure out, you know, what's gonna do. And I think it just started from, I think, October. We had a lot of festivals, really strong festival run, and one of them is Milwaukee. So we are just really happy to be here. And well, one of the festival is Chicago International Film Festival in Chicago. For us, it's very important because like most of the crew, we are based in Chicago, and it's actually really close to Urbana-Champaign. So we're just happy to show, you know, film in the Midwest area. And there were a lot of like college students, you know, also in this area. So that was really great. And we are continuing having festivals in November. Even though we don't really know like the exact release plan from MTV end, but I think they are going to release the film in 2021, and they are also going to run the award campaign. And for us, it's just really great because all the publicity eventually goes to Ying's story. And this is our chance to share Ying's story with the world. And we also hope that the film can actually, you know, travel outside US to different countries. And we're also looking forward to distributing the film in China, where more people who care about Ying's story can really see, you know, what was going on in the US when the family trying to figure out what happened to their daughter. So I think that's great. Yeah.
Yes. It was on my list of South by Southwest films that I was like, okay, this is, you know, I have my list, and then we didn't happen, but I'm happy that you were able to sort of share the film, and that it's getting out, and that it'll continue to be seen by broader and broader audiences who can be kind of impacted by Yingying's life and story, and the beautiful heart with which you have put her story on the screen. So thank you all for this film, for your time this evening. And we look forward to continuing to show it for like 4 or 5 more days, however long it is, 5 days-ish. So thank you.
Thank you.
Sure,
Thank you for
so
having
much.
us. Yeah, thank
so
you.
much.
And now we will sort of pivot a little bit to bring on screen the director of DIABLA, Ashley George. DIABLA is a short film in our Midnight Shorts program. And Ashley, can you tell us a little bit about the origin of this film for you? Where did this story start? How did you kind of take hold of it to make it?
Yeah, thank you so much. So I've been like a huge hardcore horror fan since I was probably too young to watch movies, my parents would say. And how this happened, so Maya Korn, the producer, we were in a female filmmaking group in New York City called New York NYC Women Filmmakers. And she was working on her thesis at Columbia. And she knew that I was a big fan of horror, and so was she. And so we decided that this would be a good opportunity for us to collaborate. And so we weren't really sure exactly where we were going to do the film at first, but I know she had her eyes on Mexico City. And so we traveled there, got to know a lot of really great people. We were researching issues there, and femicidio was obviously a very big issue, violence towards women. Like 1 in 9 women, I believe, if that's still the statistic, die each day from femicide in Mexico. So that was obviously a very socially relevant topic that we wanted to explore. And what better way to do it than through horror, in my opinion. So that's how it originated.
Yeah. I'm really struck by sort of the collaborations of this film from, your and Maya's well, we don't know exactly, but we want to make a film together, to sort of the, sort of collaborations on writing, the collaborations of working with, in a city where you do not live. Can you talk a little bit about how those came together and maybe how, working outside of maybe sort of your, established, comfortable bubble of the team may have affected the film that we get to see?
Yeah, I mean, there was so much fire and positive energy just being there in Mexico City. First of all, I love Mexico City. It's one of my favorite places in the world. The collaborations, we met with a lot of different producers. We ended up working with Diana, who is incredible. And from there, we ended up, building our team. And there's so many incredibly talented people that love this type of genre work. Yeah. And this is like a film about women too. And so that's obviously a hot topic there. And so people really wanted to collaborate, the intention was really strong. And I mean, Julieta, our production designer, she's incredible. She's now working on Narcos full time. Shayla Altamirano, our DP. I mean, I'd never worked with any of these people, but it was just it was such an honor, and I loved it. I mean, it was incredible. I hope to work internationally way more often.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's refreshing to hear that, those kinds of new collaborations are possible and that they produce such strong work. I think, we hear a lot of stories of oh, okay, well, here is my crew, and we plopped ourselves down and we made this and then we laugh. But building these sort of new and international collaborations that, will probably burble up again in future films. It's heartening to hear that is actively possible.
It's a global issue too, the topic that we were looking at, obviously. And so, the international collaboration that was a huge part of it. It was an honor to do it together.
Yeah. Can you talk about what's been maybe most unexpected? You set out sort of okay, well, we're going to make this, we're going to make a horror film. We're going to have it have kind of a tooth in some real issue, right? It's not just going to be just for fun. Can you talk about what was most unexpected for you sort of in production or in reception of the film?
Oh, I mean, the reception has been great. And I would say that the thing that I did not expect was certainly during production. Filming in Mexico is a whole different beast. The filming in New York is very different. And we had a lot of locations that were in nature, exteriors, outside. And so just the logistics of how to produce and film in Mexico. I mean, I wasn't producing, but I obviously was on the ground a lot with them. And it's definitely a different process there. So that was very unexpected. We had locations fall through last minute a couple times. Like I remember the night before, there's this meadow scene where Rocio and Nayeli are going to go meet this group of underground women vigilantes, right? And so, for example, like that location, we literally found it, I think, the morning of, and it was like outside of Mexico City, and we had to like caravan our crew there. So I would just stay like logistically like producing in Mexico. But everything else was like a dream, working with the actors and the team and everything.
Yeah. It sounds like they're like sort of unexpected, but pleasurably unexpected, right? Of the sort of like, the surprises of discovering new locations and having to be nimble. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it contributed to just the energy and like the urgency of the story. No, you're totally right. Yeah, I think it contributed in a positive way. Probably.
Yeah. Were you inspired by other kind of revenge stories, either like sort of with like inspiration or against some of the tropes of kind of the revenge fantasy film, which is sort of a mini subgenre? Are there films that were particularly inspired by, either positively or negatively?
Oh, I mean, yeah, totally. I wouldn't say rape revenge films or something that I look up and try to watch often, but I mean, I Spit on Your Grave, Last House on the Left were very impressionable films for me. But that's on one hand. On the other hand, I'm a huge Italian giallo fan, like Dario Argento and Suspiria. And so I kind of aesthetically wanted to kind of blend those two worlds together with DIABLA.
Yeah. Well, I think you also, I will say, I think, it's also not just falling into like, well, this is how you tell this story. I think there are moments that are unexpected, and perhaps some of that is sort of the cultural setting or the fly-by-night production decisions. But I will say that there's something fresh to it, that it's not like rerunning the wheel, but that's interesting to hear those inspirations for you. What are you working on now or next? What are your next projects we can kind of keep an eye out for?
Yeah, no, thanks. So I am actually writing my first feature, scripting that now, and hope to start developing that early in 2021. So very, very excited about that. It's like an intimate supernatural horror that's set in Oregon country. It's about a father and daughter reconnecting. So very much looking forward to getting that off the ground. And I'm a producer as well. So I direct and produce and write. And so also producing another feature that we're also developing. So more to come soon, hopefully.
And you can't tell us anything about it because it's too early.
Exactly.
The worst part about these questions, I'm like, tell me more. What are you working on? And you're like, I can't say it on the internet. People, it might jinx it.
Yeah, maybe offline. Yes, there we go.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ashley, for your film,
so
for your time, for your wonderful words that you said. I'm gonna say that you said wonderful things about our local shorts. So you've got a new fan, Milwaukee Shorts filmmakers, in Ashley. When you're in New York next, she'll maybe you have a producer collaborator in all of that. So thank you, Ashley, for filming the time. And thank you, everyone out there on the internet watching us. It's day 9. You've got 6 more days. You got like 5 more days. I don't know. Today's almost over, but it is Friday night. So it is time for you to get back on your couch, watch another film. Be sure to join us tomorrow. We've got a really packed day of panels and Q&As, the Nightcap, and then our Stop Making Sense virtual dance party, where we will all be dancing in our own separate homes, as we always do every year for Stop Making Sense. Thank you, everyone, and good night.